They sometimes they're very much a make to order. Sometimes they're a make to stock type of company. So I'll start off by looking in there, and we'll look at the heart of our system is really our work order. We call it our production order. And if you look at that, you open the screen, you can see all of the production orders that are there. It's color-coded to show you what's going on. If I want to look at a production order that's in a planned phase, I can look at it here. Now the phases we have 3 active production phases. We have planning, which means you've thrown it on the system because you want to see what it looks like relative to everything else. You want to see how it would stand up in terms of inventory availability and that information. And it's really the first stage of when system they come in from our production planning system. When orders come in, they come in a planning stage. But nevertheless, every order starts in a planning stage. Then it moves on to a plan stage. And in the plan stage, one of the big differences between planning and planned is if you have a multi-level bill, and at the planning stage, it said that, we have a subassembly that we have another build for, and we actually don't have enough of that, it will actually produce a work order for the quantity that you need, and so on and so on and so on. So if you have a multi-level build, it will go from the top right to the bottom. But if I just want to enter an item in here in a work order, just create a work order, as Jim said, one of the methods we can do, I enter the part number. What was the number here? 561. This is a top level item that we have here. Can bring it in, and we'll see the item here. And if we save that, we're going to get we have to actually give it a quantity. So I have to give it a quantity. I want to make 3, and I'll save it. And I've generally got a work order here. It's brought in the specifications for this particular item. Because this is an item that I make very often, I have a spec for it. And when I create a work order, it will bring in the materials that I need, and it will bring in the labor that I'm also going to need to do it. So we treat labor and non-stock items together because that's kind of the way Acumatica does it. Now, a labor item is a physical labor item that we may ultimately want to record time on. And we have a form so that you can collect labor within your environment and accumulate it for the job from multiple users without consuming a user license, as Jim likes that feature. And we also have materials. And so with materials, we have flexibility. As Jim said, we're very flexible. If for whatever reason, on this particular order, I don't want to follow this particular revision number, I can just go in here and I can add items that I might want, or I can change quantities that I might want. So I can change my quantities right now. And I can do this at any time up until just before I complete the work order. Of course, after I complete the work order, I can't change quantities, but we've got full flexibility of the work order right through the planning plan stage all the way. If I want to see down here, it gives me sort of visibility of my inventory, so I know where I'm at right here. If I want to see that in detail, I can look at the allocations that the system has out there, and it'll show us all the allocations. So I have 269 on hand. It's showing me where all the demand is in the system, and it's also showing me where the supply is in the system too. So if I look here, here's the demand that's drawing on the system for this particular component, and here's the supply. And as yet, I don't have any purchase orders. Now, if some of you are Acumatica users, you're used to how you set up and work with your allocations. But if you're not, you definitely need to get a handle on how you're going to set up your allocations, and you want inventory visibility in your system. But in this case, we're basically saying that PO receipts, we're going to consider them as available because we know material's on its way. Anything that's sitting and receiving, we know that it's going to be available. And potentially anything that might be coming in from production that we're actually building, we should probably have these two checked. Now, this particular customer doesn't do it. I won't change it on them, but they generally don't care to see that. And of course, this is all the demand we have. We have sales order demand and everything. But nevertheless, I say that because our MRP system is going to want to use that. So if we go down here and we say, okay, what's the status of my inventory? It'll go through here and it will go, oh, I have enough here to build all these, but this one particular item, which is a subassembly, I'm going to have to produce it. So what I'll do is if I advance the order to another state here, if I basically say, okay, I'm going to complete planning, if I complete planning, take a sec, depends on how deep this bill of materials is. Okay, we've done it, and you'll notice that we've created a subassembly work order. So that's now, we could consider that a child of this parent, okay, because that is being driven off. Now, this is obviously product dependent on how you do your product and everything. But here here's the subassembly. And of course, the subassembly is quite a big item all on its own. And we've gone through and we can see that the system has figured out that we're going to have to purchase this particular item and at the rest of the items that we're going to get from inventory. So green means we're good to go. So we'll have to go through and we have to look and see. We can see it's giving us our vendor, everything we want here, and our quantity here. At this point in time, if I want, just as there's a number of ways to get work orders in the system, there's a number of ways to satisfy demand in the system. And you could purchase, you can either, in our system, if you wanted to purchase to shore up your shortage, you could basically purchase it right now. So if I go back to the previous work order, you'll notice we have a parent-child relationship. Here's the parent, and you'll notice the child is 427, and it tells us what the parent is here. But if I go back to this particular work order, so I'm dealing at the top level, not worrying about the parent subassembly, although it's out here. I can, at this point, if I want, I can purchase the work order chain requirements, which would basically go through and it would purchase everything on this work order and all the dependent work orders that it's depending on in order to complete. It will aggregate all that demand. So if I have, 40 half-inch NC bolts on one bill of material in 4 different places, and on another bill of material I've got it in 5 different places, it'll aggregate all that up and cut a PO to the vendor for the quantity that I want. And if the quantity is 50 and it comes in a box of 100, it'll order 100, of course. That's how the system works. But I can aggregate all the work order on a work order by work order basis, or I can purchase from here on an aggregated basis. So everything for this and everything else. And we also have in our system the ability to roll up a number of different work orders. So I can take 50 different work orders and roll them up and say, I want you to aggregate up everything I need on these work orders and create a PO. And it will create one PO to the vendor with one line for each SKU that I'm going to buy from that vendor with the quantity that I need. So that it'll do that. I'll show you that a little later when we get into it. So we're looking at the work order. We can change it. We can do what we want. We have the ability if we make mistakes and we're not happy with things. So if I go back to this particular item, you'll notice that I have a subassembly here, and I go, oh, I actually don't have to make it. We give you the option right here. You can actually delete it right here if you choose. Okay, it's gone now, so we don't have it anymore. So that work order is now gone, and we're going to have to say, the system still thinks we have demand, but maybe that's just an inventory error or something like that, or we're going to rob one from somewhere else, but we don't have to go through and do that at this point. So we're pretty flexible here. You can change your dates. We have in the system here, we generally have dates here. It's going to tell us when the material's all available. So The fact is that it found everything in inventory, so my material is available here, and now it'll do its scheduling based on the unit time that you do here. Now, for this customer, they do it on a minute basis, but the majority of people will probably work in hours, would be the unit that they'd want to work in. We keep costing as we go. So if we look, you can see that we have a unit cost, what the material is going to cost us, what the labor is going to cost us, and what it's going to work on a per unit basis. So quite often that's how we think about costing, is not on what it is for the total job, but what it is on a per unit basis. So I can see what my costs are. So this is important if I'm doing a quotation, but it's also important with the fact that when I've done the work order, I'm going to get actuals. So, and the actuals could be different from what my plan was, and that might be interesting to know. They could be different because of a cost overrun. Had to scrap a bunch of material and redo part of a job. Had some unforeseen problem. Or maybe we're gaining efficiencies and our costs are coming down, and at that point in time we can change our price, making us more competitive, whatever we want. But when we're done a work order, we're going to get actuals in here, and these are the actual costs. Sometimes your costs can vary as well because Acumatica has FIFO inventory. So I might bring in an expensive I'll use the camera in my example later here. I might bring in an expensive thermal camera at a cost. First time I buy it, I pay $10,000 for it. But the next time I buy it, I pay $8,000 for it. But if this work order consumed the first one that I bought, and I had set that to be a FIFO item, first in, first out, this work order is going to get applied that $10,000 cost that particular item is carrying on the books. So that's where you'll get differences there. So you want to explain it. But this basically is just going to give you, and there's a report, there's a generic inquiry you can use to study how you do against what you plan to spend on doing a work order and what actually happens. We do have scrap. One of the things we do have on a work order, I'll just pick one that's actually released here. Pick one that's released. Oh, this is old data with the updated software, so it tends to want to not like some data sometimes. I'll pick a new one here. We'll just take this one, and we'll see if releasing it will work. So we released that one. Now we can go out and we can actually, we may have scrapped something on here, and you can actually record scrap. We also have another column out here, which is called quantity consumed. Now, sometimes when you manufacture stuff, I like to think of delta in product in two different ways. There's like what I call overages, and then there's what I call scrap. Now, scrap is where I scrap something of significance that I may want to send back to the vendor for rework, or that I may I may have some further use for it, or it may be an anomaly that we definitely want to be singled out as a expensive event that happened. And then we have overages, which are like you may have a hydraulic system on something you're building, and you say that it's going to take 90 liters of oil, and it just turns out that after spillage and everything we did, the guys on the work order wrote down that they actually used 120 liters of oil. So that's overages that are just going to make a delta in the cost of the item. But when a work order is released, one of the things we do is you have to complete it. And one of the steps of completing it is you need to the system needs to know what date we finished it, and it needs to know the quantity that we produced. Did we actually produce what we planned to produce, or did we cut the work order off short? And then once we do that, we have the ability to complete the work order. We also have the ability to quick complete the work order, which is to quick complete the work order, which will allow us to backflush whatever we had on our original plan. So whatever the quantity that we said we were going to require, it will say, okay, you used what you said you were going to require. There was no differences that I had to record or anything. And so in that case, it just backflushes, which is a normal thing most systems do. However, if you're recording labor or something, seldom does it often go to plan, especially in prototype work. And I think looking at a couple of websites, you do a lot of prototype, one-off, engineer to order type of work. So in that case, you'd be recording stuff. So in this case, we can put in what we actually used. I've got something is amiss here. Why am I not being able to do that? Have I got what's my quantity required here? Anyway, I'll show you this on the other side, on the other system. When you click on this, I'm not sure what's going on here. Okay, when you click on that, it'll basically put in the quantity that you consumed. If anything is different from the delta, it won't update it. So I'll show you that on the other one, I hope, when I go into my other one here. So as I said, we're doing things on here. One of the things you can do is it shows you how we're handling the bill of materials. If we go and we want to look at the spec structure, we can see how something is actually built. That item we were looking at, if we look at it here, and we look at the revision that we're looking at, we can see that it'll handle all of this material. You can see we're basically, every color change means we're going a step deeper in our bill of materials into a nested subassembly. And so we can do that. You can view that as a report if you choose, if you want to do that. So that's a nested report if you want. If you just want to say, I just want to know everything that's in this from top to bottom, I don't care where it sits in the subassembly, I can look and I can do that, and I can pick it for the same item. And what it'll do is it'll aggregate up the quantities that I need as well. So it's going to tell me how much I need of all the components to build that. So it's going through and it's aggregated all the quantities up and telling me what I need and what the costs are going to be as it rolls up. So I see where my costs for components are coming in. This works for components only. What I'm going to do now is I'm probably going to switch and I just want to confirm you guys do some prototyping, custom work, make to order, engineer to order, that's part of your daily life where you feel some pain. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah. So all this so far has been great, but we don't build any assemblies whatsoever.
Okay.
It's only individual pieces for individual customers. So a customer might order 10 different part numbers from us, but each one of them goes into the ERP system as an individual part number with just labor and materials and maybe plating, and that's it. So we don't do any nested sub-assemblies. We're not ordering anything other than raw materials essentially from anybody. So it's a little simpler than what you've shown so far.
Okay. Well, let me try. Let me try and show you how that might work in a system. So one of the other ways that Jim said you can get an order in the system is through a sales order. So if I'm going to go through and I'll do a sales order, for instance, and this is going to be for a custom item that I have here. So let's go through and create a sales order. And this is on just so you know, if you're paying attention, we're on a little different Acumatica instance, so the data is different in here. So I'll pick a customer, and this happens to be for a bank in Japan. Okay, we'll pick these guys. And now what we're doing is we want to sell this customer something. So we're going to go here, and I'm just going to do a custom proto. Okay, the custom prototype component. Okay, that I'm building here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to enter a quantity of, let's say they want 4 of these, okay? All right. Now, what's happened is this is, let's just save that so we get a work order. We want a work order because we want to add all the custom work that we're going to do on this particular item here. So what we're going to do is we're going to, let's say the customer is telling us what he wants to do. He wants to build something. So let's go out and get some info from the customer, because one of the things when you do this type of work, and I used to be in the environment where I did that type of work, it was getting the information. You know, I'd want the sales guy would take an order for something. Yeah, that's great. I was in the production department, poor me, and I'd have the job of building it and fulfilling it. Well, half the time I couldn't get a hold of the sales guy to find out what he really meant or whatever. So sometimes information is important. So one of the features that I like that we've incorporated is on this particular item, I can go out and I can attach a bunch of files. I'm just going to do that here. I'm going to browse out here and I'm going to get a couple of files. And I've got some field notes from the customer, from the sales guy here. Okay, and I've got some, and he was basically took some other information, which he got some details on a spec on something that the customer wanted here. Okay, so we went through and we're going to select that. Okay, and we're going to upload that. Okay, oh, I forgot to upload my other one here. Let's just upload my other one here. And let's upload that. So I've got two here. So the sales guy's basically giving me some notes. He's basically taken an order for, wants to build in this case, a real simple component here. He's basically, it's something he wants to do on this, just some notes, you know. I've taken some stuff down, and the camera's to be spec'd. So I don't know what the camera is yet, but I'm gonna end up building this. Okay, and so now I've got the information. He supplied some information on the camera that the customer was thinking at. Okay, it's good, but he didn't know whether it's an A50 or an A70 in this case. Okay, great. Well, we're going to continue on and do some work on this. So what I'm going to do is, so now it moves down the next phase of the line. So I'm just going to add a note here, and this is going to be okay, he wants to just add this component. This is a special thing he wants added to something we do. I'm going to click this button which says make a dedicated work order. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a work order. Okay, I've created a work order. But now when I open that work order, there's nothing in the work order. You'll see there's no materials or anything that's in the work order. First thing I want to do is say, well, where am I going to do this? Well, I'm probably going to build this out on the, where will I build it? I'll build it on the shop floor, okay? So we'll build it on the shop floor. That's where, when it's completed, somebody's going to be able to go and find it. It's going to be on the shop floor. So what are the materials that I'm going to build? Well, nicely, it basically passed all the notes and everything that were on that line through here. Because who put the sales order in the system might not be the guy who's got to figure out how to build it and actually build it. And so in that case, any information that I get when I'm in that chair is helpful. So again, it's passed those files through to me. They're here as I want them. And I've got the notes. So what I'm going to want to do is I may be the purchasing agent at this point. And I've been said, oh, hey, can you source out the price of that camera? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'll just say, well, I don't want to put that part number in my system because we may never use it. And so it'll fill it up. So I can use what we call a placeholder. So this is a placeholder for this particular item. And then I can put some notes in here. Maybe I'm the guy doing the design, and I just want down the road to let the purchasing agent know what he's going to have to buy. So it's going to be an FLIR. It's either going to be an A50 or maybe an A70, and I can just say C attached data sheet. Okay, he's got some memos right there. I can go through there. How many do I need? I need, what's the price of this? Well, the price of this is going to be roughly, we think about the first phone call told us $9,300, and I want 1 per unit. I'm doing 4 units, so that's going to give me a quantity of 4. So if I save that and I look, I should see that, okay, I've got that price coming in. That's $9,300 a unit right now it's going to cost me. Okay, now if I look at this, okay, I might go out and do some design work, okay, and I might, whether it be an Inventor or Creo or whatever tool you use, I'm not certain, AutoCAD, whatever you use, but, oh, sorry, clicked on the wrong one, but we're basically going to build a part here, and we've surmised that we're going to build that part out of aluminum. Well, maybe I want to build it out of steel, maybe I want to build it out of aluminum, I don't know. So anyway, let's just play with some numbers. So I'll go in here and I'll go plate, and I'll go 60, there it is, there's my aluminum plate, 2.5 inches thick. I deemed that I needed 2.5 inch thick material for here. You can see here that my unit of measure here is a square feet. So I basically bring the material I draw it from inventory in square feet. Maybe that's the size of the parts I do, it makes sense. And I figured out that this is going to take 0.7 of a square foot. Okay, so now that's gone through, and if we look here, we'll see down here, it should have actually brought in a vendor for me. Maybe it's not in this system. I don't have it. Oh, that's my sales order I'm working on. Sorry, I'm on the sales order. My fault. Let me go back to the work order. Okay, there's my placeholder. Now I want to put my aluminum plate in here. Plate 60. There's my aluminum plate. Okay, it tells me that it's in the aluminum plate rack. Okay, and it tells me that it's $117 a square foot. And I can show you how it figured that out after a while. And it's going to take 0.7 square feet. Okay. If I look over here, you'll see my costs went up a little bit. It was $9,300. There's $82 worth of aluminum now in this cost. So you'll see, as you're going along, you're actually building these costs up. But I said I might want to make it out of steel. So there again, I can go in here and I can add plate, and I'll make it out of 516 area ASTM plate right there. I'll make it out of that, and again, I'm 0.7 of a foot here. Okay, and I'll just, for the time being, make this one 0. All right, now I can go back and I can see, look, no, it's a little cheaper. This one's a little cheaper to do it that way, but I'm an aluminum fan, so I'm going to go back to 0.70 because I think I'll be able to machine it faster. So I will just, I'll just delete this. I'm going to save that now. Okay, so I've got some materials. I got some prototype. I realize the purchasing agent will, if we go ahead, when he does it, he'll go through and he won't be able to I won't be able to release this work order for production or purchase against this work order until I have all the placeholder items off. And certain parts are identified as placeholder items, and a work order can't be released with a placeholder item on it because it's something we don't know. It'll cause a problem for us. So what we'll have to do is if we go out, we've got some special settings in our system on inventory items. And one of the settings we have on it here is it a placeholder item? And that's how the system identifies that, oh, I can't release a work order with one of these on it because it's an unknown, so we won't. We also have something, a repair item, which says that, okay, this is an item that's coming back in for repair. It's a repair job. For instance, if you had doing hydraulic cylinders, let's say you're in heavy equipment and you're rebuilding hydraulic cylinders all the time. Well, one of the things you might do is you might create a inventory item which has a bill of materials. On the bill of materials is the seal kit for the hydraulic system. And what happens is you basically also say that I'm going to get the original hydraulic cylinder. So it could be the CAT hydraulic cylinder assembly part number that comes back in. Maybe you even sell the whole, you're a Caterpillar dealer, you sell the whole thing. God, would I love a Caterpillar dealer. But anyway, you're a Caterpillar dealer and you do that. So anyway, I won't get into it too much, but we do have the ability to handle repaired items coming in and going back through and flowing through your system. So that was how we handled that. But now it's time to go on to labor. So I go on to labor, and now I can add one of the things that I might want here. And one of the things I might want here is I'm going to say, okay, well, there's some, let's see, what's going to happen first. Okay, there's going to be some CAD CAM work, right? Okay, so we're going to get some CAD CAM work, and it's going to take, let's see, I got 4 of these units, probably going to take me 2 hours. That's about half an hour there. So I'm getting a charge for it. Brought in a charge of $175 an hour. That's what I figure my cost is in order to provide that resource. And then I'm going to say, okay, the next thing I'm going to want to do, so I'm going to want to probably put it on my 5-axis machining center. So I'll just put that in here. There's my Heller 5-axis machining center. I charged that out. Let's see, I got 4 to do. I looked at everything over. I think, it's going to take me about 0.40 an hour to machine that. Okay. And now I can say, do I have any outside operations? And this might be where you put, if you've got a, anodizing step, if you've got a case hardening step, if you've got a chrome and grinding step to come out that you have done with an outside vendor, you would put that in here now. And it would show up here as a non-stock item. And what would happen is when you release the work order, you then could cut a purchase order to that vendor for that non-stock service that you're having that vendor do for you. So that's how we get service items that we outsource to other companies into the system. So I can save this. If I go back now and I look at my cost, you'll notice that my labor is accumulating on this job here as well. So I've got this information here. What's good about this is I go along and do that, and ultimately we're going to want to get a price back on the sales order so that we can do an invoice, because that's what everybody just wants to do, is do invoices. So if we put in here a cost markup, if I go 140, okay, so that will be my cost. I'll charge that, and I can push that back to the sales order. Remember, we've got this sales order here, and we know the sales order line for this item that we're building. I can push that cost back to the sales order. So now that cost will be on that line on the sales order. Everybody still with me?
Yep.
Okay. Sometimes this thing will pop off, and I'll talk for 10 minutes, and I'm talking to nothing. So we can do that. Now, my worst fear when I was in doing, working for a living in manufacturing was the sales guys rushing down and saying, how fast could I have one from that big order that you're doing? And of course, the standard answer is never. But nevertheless, you end up losing that fight always, because salespeople always win the fight because they're dealing with customers. And so what we'll do is we allow you to do partial completions. So you can actually put in the day that you partially completed it. You can put in the completed quantity that you had, right? And then when we do that, hang on, I can't do that. I got to put in the right quantity. Say it was only one I'm building, right? And I want to save that. All right. And so what'll happen is I move through here. Sorry. Doesn't make sense to do it right now. I haven't released the work order, so it won't do it. So I'll show you that later when we release the work order. I'm getting ahead of myself. So anyway, we've got that. We're at that point. We're happy. I may want to add one of the things I may want is tooling, right? If I'm going to break a tool, or I figure I'm going to consume a tool, or I'm going to have to chop a tool up, I could actually put that on here too. So I can put in For instance, a KN, what do I want? N mill? What would I call that? Let's try, it's a Kennemental, Harvite, right? Harvite. No, that's not it. What have I got? I got one here, 6.6. Is it showing up? It's not showing up. But if I had some special tooling in here that I wanted to buy, like I knew I was going to chew up a bunch of inserts because something is induction hardened or something like that, and I wanted to have that come in the bill, I could put my inserts in here if I wanted to make them a charge in the job if that was important. Okay, next step is, okay, I'm happy with that. I can complete the planning. Oh, it doesn't like a unit conversion here somewhere. And I was playing with that today. I'm not going to go through and set up and do that. I'll just go to one that's already done that way. It's easier. You have to set up your units and your unit conversions and everything. And this isn't a system that I demo off all the time, so there can be some issues in that respect. If I go to one that's released here, let's see, custom fabrication, here's one that was released. So if I go here, this is one that's been released. So now this is released. An interesting one it releases is what it does is it created, Acumatica have a document that's called the kit assembly document. If you know Acumatica, you may be using it already. But what happens is we piggyback off of that because that gives us a whole bunch of functionality that we don't have to write and support. It gives us the ability to select and assign serial numbers. It gives us the ability to post to the GL, post the inventory transactions that go through. So we're not burdened with having to do all of those transactions because there's an Acumatica document out there that does it for us, and that's the kit assembly. If we go to the kit assembly, and you still have the complete ability to do the kit assembly in Acumatica if you want, it does that, and this is the point here where we would actually assign serial numbers. So, for instance, in this one, it wants me to assign the finished goods serial number. If I go back to the work order, it's showing me there's a link to the work order. You'll notice it's giving me some information, some feedback here. So there is a lot of synchronization and communication between the kit and the production order because we're really the master, and at this point in time, the kit assembly is locked down, and it becomes our slave to do the financial and inventory transactions, to do the heavy lifting in the bookkeeping department. So we have that. Partial completions. I can go through and do a partial completion. How many am I doing? I'm doing 2, so I can complete any number less than the whole number. If I do that and then I save it, what'll happen is it automatically creates a kit for me. So you'll notice that this kit is 0084 and this one is 0065. I have to do a kit, and the reason I do that at this point in time is I have to deduct from inventory what I'm consuming, so it's gone, and I have to increment inventory with what I'm finished so that it shows up on the system, and we can either ship it, sell it, invoice, and do that. So in this respect, we will do a partial completion. Okay, now when I go to complete this work order, I'll put the finished quantity in and I'll complete it, and the last one will collect everything. This one basically just goes through at what our plan was. This is more a training issue than anything else, but nevertheless, you need to know that we'll basically do a kit assembly in order to get one of these items into inventory for you, and that the work order now knows that it's ultimately only finishing with 1. I'll put 2 in here when I go to finish it, but it will only ultimately increment the amount incoming to inventory by 1 more. So it just keeps that current for me. So we have that ability. We have as well the ability to allocate inventory, if you say, for instance, are in something and you go, oh, like we definitely have to do, a stellar job for this customer, so I want it put through the shop as fast as possible. And so I don't want any competition for any material. Okay, well, what I can do is I can actually set an allocation location that I want to segregate that material, which means set it aside. It physically moves, it may not, it at least virtually moves to another location, which changes its visibility in the inventory system. But you also could functionally move it to another place. Say you want it to move to a job cart. You can do that. And if you wanted a particular label on that job cart, you would just put what that is here. As soon as I allocate it, this field will become available. And you can actually print a label for the job cart. So it'll just be work order number 111108 in this case. And so you can print out a pick ticket to pick out the allocated items and put them on the job cart. So, it might be an intermediate step in your inventory warehouse person has to do in order to do that, and then they'll pick the final items when they go. So you can actually do this, and then as soon as we do that, you can you should be able to hard allocate that material here. This is not coming due. I forget just some constraint. I haven't done something, but if I hard allocate it, it will move it from its current location. It won't hard allocate because it says, hey, where you're at, there isn't anything to allocate. So that's my problem. I'm in a location where there is no inventory available. But if there was inventory available, or I had a magical way of making inventory, I could allocate that, and it would move. It would do a transfer, which is an Acumatica warehouse transaction, that moves it from its original location to the location that you want here. So you can do that as well. And then it will show up with the quantity that was allocated and the transfer number if you want to look at it. And that's important because if there's a serial number to be assigned, there's an intermediate step. You have to go out and do that. So if you're assigning material that is a mill spec, you have to pick which lot you're going to transfer it from. Okay, so there's allocations, there's that, pricing, everything. Some of the other things in the system that we have. What have we got? Pretty much gone over. We have an expediter's report. Where is stuff relative to it was purchased? Where is it? What's its status? Is it received? I need to know. I'm sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. Just excuse me again, please. Not used to talking this much. Going back into the system, we have the ability to capture time if you want. If you want to record how much time was actually an operator was on a machine or is charging to the machine or whatever for a labor operation, you can go in there and you can pick a work order that's been released, and then each operator is given a code, and I don't know what it is in this system. There's one, 777, and we mustn't have any labor tasks on that work order. If we pick one with labor tasks, let's hope this one has some labor tasks. There's some labor tasks. And now when I enter 777, my code, it knows that that's me. I'm going to put the time in. And now I can pick on here and I can say, how much time did I spend? And I can go in here and I can say, okay, I spent, 0.55 or 5 of an hour. And what it'll do is you'll notice here it's actually accumulating the time. So it's accumulating my time and the time of everybody else for the labor step that I'm on. So, the guy submerged arc welding, he was quick. He did all this in half an hour. I never could get a submerged arc welder started in half an hour, but anyway, he's got it going here and he's doing it, so it's got half an hour. Maybe that was just between now and the end of the day, and he comes back tomorrow and he puts in more time, and it'll accumulate the time. So if I save that,
is there a way to capture that time in real time on the shop floor, or do you have to kind of click in and estimate it when you're done?
Well, we don't actually have a way to actually record it on the as yet on the system, but potentially you could do that. We'd be looking at that as some custom work to do that. But I'm not sure how you record it. You might just would you clock it? Like we have the ability with this form here. When you go to a work order and you go to, let's just print a work order form. Let's just print a work order form. There we go. So if we put in that work order, we've got a video of a demo somewhere where we, hopefully I got some work on this one. Oh, I did have the one I want. Okay, let's just run the report here. Okay, we've got barcodes on here, and like for labor, for a machinist fab shop labor, if he pulls that screen up, he's got he'll have a card laminated, and he would just zap that card. And we had talked with one group about doing this on a handheld, and he'd just look at the work order, he'd zap the work order number, then that would bring in all of the operations. He'd zap the operation that he's working on, and he zapped his card so we know who he is. Then the only thing he has to do is there's a keypad on the bottom, is key in how much time he spent. And so we talked about doing that as a potential for a shop floor time capture system, because everybody's got a phone now. So, and Acumatica is smart with the phone. So, running all the way over to the time clock, I think, is a pretty passé thing nowadays. But nevertheless, it still could be. And in this system, what would happen is the employee would write his time down on this. This would be a traveler that he's got. He would write his time down on here with a pen, and then this greasy old piece of paper comes from the shop back to somebody who would key the time in on the work order if you were capturing work order time. So we've got another system, if you want to, probably doesn't apply too much to your type of work, but certainly aggregating a bunch of production requirements. So if we wanted, we can run out and there's a lot of data in this system, so it's chugging pretty good here. This system's been running for, Jim can tell you, but years. I'm not sure how long, but we can basically put a time fence around some data that we want. So if I want everything from Jan 1 this year to now, okay, I'll select that, Jan 1 to now, and then I want to just the warehouse I'm working in this warehouse. If I want that, I've got these 3 work orders. Now what I can do is I can actually at this point run MRP, and MRP will go out and it'll look at, okay, what's the status of stuff on inventory? Okay, what stuff haven't you allocated for? Okay, then I got to think of that, and it's gonna look at all of these work orders, and it's going to aggregate everything up, and it's going to aggregate everything up to a vendor at one vendor /SKU. So if I have one part that I'm using across, if I'm using aluminum across 15 different work orders, and I buy all my aluminum from one vendor, I'm going to get one PO cut with all of the different sizes of aluminum that I buy from that vendor, and it's going to create that PO. But if I just want to look at that, because let's say that's an easy way to spend an awful lot of money, and I want to look at it before I press that button, I can actually run a requirements report, and it will go out and it will look at all of the items that I'm short for and show me that. Supposed to, anyway. If the screen popped up somewhere else, oh, maybe I don't have my screen pop up or something. Yeah, but it pops up with a report that gives you that breakdown of turn that off. What happens here now? No, I guess I don't have any requirements. All is good. So, but if you had shortages, it would show you all those shortages. I can do an example and send that report along as a follow-up. So, anyway, that's the highlights and some lowlights.